After 4 days in the cellars of the Gestapo building, the prisoners were taken to the railway station in Amsterdam. There they were loaded under guard onto an ordinary passenger train. Jani Brilleslijper, a member of the Dutch resistance, was amongst the prisoners.
Wat ik zag, het was een familie. Er waren een aantal mensen, een heel bezorgde vader en een nerveuze moeder. En 2 kinderen in sportkleding. Ze hadden trainingspakken aan, geloof ik. Ik weet het, tenslotte is het meer dan 50 jaar geleden. Ze hadden trainingspakken aan en rugzakken bij zich. En ze bleven voortdurend met z'n vieren bij elkaar. Ze spraken heel zacht met elkaar. Er waren nog andere mensen bij. Het was een prachtige dag. De zon straalde je tegemoet. De huizen van de stad die baden in het goud. En die mensen hadden allemaal een soort van zwijgende weemoed in zich. Niemand zei wat. Ik kan niet zeggen dat de mensen bang waren. We gingen het ongewisse tegemoet. We wisten niet wat ons te wachten stond.
This was the first destination for the Franks and the other prisoners. Westerbork Transit Camp in northern Holland. This film was produced by the camp commandant to show his superiors in Berlin how successful he was in keeping his temporary prisoners occupied before sending them on to less benign places in Poland or Germany. 104,000 people were processed through here between 1942 and 1945, more than 75% of the Jews in Holland before the outbreak of war. Proudly and without irony, the commandant showed the bizarre humiliation of his prisoners who were largely ignorant of the fate that awaited them. Of the 60,000 or so who were sent to Auschwitz from here, only 673 were ever to return, and of the 34,313 transported to Sobibor death camp, just 19 came back. In the meantime, Westerbork offered ball games and calisthenics, and the Jews were encouraged to entertain themselves with a weekly cabaret. 3 survivors of that time in August 1944 returned for the first time in 50 years. All, like the Franks, had been captured in hiding.
It is maybe unbelievable, but when we were arrested and brought to the prison, I cannot say it was a kind of a relief, no. But there was something that we said, well, now this is maybe the end from the war, because we knew the invasion was going on. And the end is finally in sight, and what we have to do now is try to survive this.
It was so overwhelming to come here. I knew it was Westerbork, and I thought this is the end, because I knew what happened in Germany. And I knew that they were going to kill us.
We never gave up hope that we would not survive the war. And there was not that much Gestapo supervision in the camps.
The first people I saw at the gate were the Franks. I knew Margot rather well and knew Anne. We said to each other, you two here, you two, were you hidden, what happened? But very soon you were taken inside the camp and you have to be registered and you got your wooden shoes because we were punished because we were hidden.
For me, it has been the best time of the war. No hunger, nice boys. We worked during the daytime, wasn't bad, and then we got food, and we were standing around and making jokes with each other.
Like the other prisoners, the 8 from the annex were given make-work jobs by their captors. The Franks were amongst those who had the dirty task of breaking up old batteries for recycling. Otto Frank wanted something better for his Anna.
I was cleaning the table, and then at once somebody came to me with a girl, and that was Otto Frank. Later on I knew it. And with Anne, and he asked me, he is Anne, my daughter, and do you have work for her? Because he wanted, of course, her to be inside and with us. And then she said to me, I can help you. I'm very handy, I can do everything.
This was the end, actually. This was it. It all started here. My grandparents, all my uncles, all my aunts, all my nieces, all my nephews, all my friends, they came here. And that was the beginning of the end. And I really feel like this is a big cemetery.
In the end, you start to believe that it won't happen. You know that there are transports going each Tuesday. But when 2 months have passed and your own name wasn't on the list, you start to believe we can stay here until the end of the war. Because by then, of course, we knew that there would be an end. Although it was incredible, but we knew that the English and the Americans were already in Europe. And then it came, and you became very factual. You took your things, everything. You got back the things that belonged to you because they had taken that away from you because they gave you that outfit. And it was like what happened so many times later. It was like having, I don't know how you call it, that you don't quite realize what's going on and what will happen with you and to you.
"83 trains left Westerbork during the Second World War for the East, for the Polish death camps of Auschwitz and Sobibor. On September the 3rd, 1944, they loaded many of the Jews in Westerbork onto the very last transport to Auschwitz. 1,019 men, women and children, amongst them the group of 8 from the secret annex. For most, it was to be their last sight of Holland.
Darkness is the first thing I think about. Being cramped in. Too many people. No room enough. Luggage. No possibility to lie. Sitting for 3 days. Now and then standing.
You were like in a trance. You didn't realize. You realized that very bad things were to happen. And to be completely powerless.
Sometimes we stood up, we got up and looked through cracks. And when we were at the station, when the train stopped, because we still had no idea how we went and where it would end and how long it would take.
People cried, and at the other side they tried to tell stories to each other. They tried to sleep, to sleep standing. And there was not enough food and drink.
We were with, I think, about 40, 50 people in that cattle car. We were standing. Sometimes we got to our knees to rest a little bit, urinating and other things. I don't really remember what we did, but there was nothing there. Nothing. I think we just let it go.
And it was like an endless journey. And even that was better than that there would have come an end to it, because the end was not good. That we felt.
Your imagination stops at certain moments. You refuse to imagine the worst.
On the night of September the 5th, the train from Holland reached its final destination, Auschwitz death camp in southwest Poland.
Then we saw all those lamps, terrible, hard. The color was so terrible, yellowish. And we came there, men, women, children alike, on the platform here. Don't know where exactly. Yeah, I see that door. They're astonished.
I really thought I passed away. And this was hell. Really, I thought I'm already dead.
You were driven one way or another way. After all was the one way to the death. And this was to a kind of life. I remember very well too that you were naked before a man, and I was educated chastely in the values of my people, and I got a shock. I knew that from this moment on, all your norms and values were of no importance anymore, and that there was a quite new set of values to be learned. And if you didn't learn it, you would be dead. That I remembered, that I realized in 1 second, and I was only 18 years old.
According to Auschwitz's own records, more than half the people from that train were gassed on the day after their arrival, September the 6th. 549 Jews, among them every child under the age of 15.
They told us right away what was waiting for us, death. Of your people right here, they're going to the chimneys, maybe tonight already. It was just a death factory.
We knew, we saw that terrible pipe burning day and night, the smell. I thought when I should come here, that I should have very penetrant smell. I don't know. I was sure that I should smell it, because sometimes I smell it. The smell of the disinfection, the smell of the burning flesh, and the smoke.
Anna, Margot and Edith Frank, together with Mrs. van Pels, were among the 212 women from the Dutch train who were granted entry into that special hell they called Auschwitz-Birkenau. They were placed in Women's Block 29.
It was no life. It was no life at all. We were degraded to even less than beasts, less than animals.
And then we were standing outside, and I saw a wagon, and I said, oh, the first day, and what's he throwing on there? Dead bodies. Oh my God, I could hardly look. The next couple of days later, I saw it. Oh, there's that wagon again who picks up the dead bodies. And the next time, I didn't even pay any attention to that wagon. So your brain starts functioning differently, because if you didn't do it on purpose, but then you couldn't go on living.
In Auschwitz-Birkenau, Edith Frank and her daughters were drawn together as never before.
A very important survival for all the people in concentration camps were the forming of groups, support groups. And of course, as mother and children and daughters, you were a natural support group. And I think everything from the past was faded away against the scene of Auschwitz. It was of no importance anymore, I suppose.
Was there any sign of the previous antagonism between Anne and her mother?
I think it was all forgotten. They were always together, and you can have a luxury of a struggle with your mother in normal circumstances. These circumstances were so bad, not only bad, but like a ghost writing, that everything fell away. I'm quite sure about that. The last time I saw Anne and Margot and Mrs. Frank was when there had been a selection for a working camp, but you never knew for what the selection was. But Anne and her mother told that Anne was not allowed to go with our group because she had scabies. Her mother and Margot decided to stay with Anne. We went to a labor camp where we didn't get food and hard work, but most of us survived. There were few deaths and there were no gas chambers. Had she not had that scabies, and had they gone with our transport, they had had a better chance to survive.
So, because Anna was suffering from scabies and her mother and sister chose to remain with her, all three lost their chance to leave Auschwitz for the safety of the work camp, where many of the Dutch women saw out the remainder of the war. As for the men, when they had first arrived at Auschwitz that September the 5th, Otto Frank, Hermann and Peter van Pels and Fritz Pfeffer, together with the other 254 males who had not immediately been gassed, had been separated from their women and taken to the nearby camp of Auschwitz I. This, the original death camp created from an old Polish army barracks, may have been smaller than neighbouring Auschwitz-Birkenau, where the women had remained within sight of the massive gas chambers and 3 crematoria, but life here for the men was no easier. Mr. van Pels was the first to wither.
When we told him, don't give up, don't, he did, and it was just like he melted away. He was 2 weeks, 2 days, he was gone. He gave up. That was it.
No one knows exactly when they took Hermann van Pels to the gas chamber, but it was only a few weeks after his arrival at Auschwitz. Otto Frank and Saul de Lima resolved to keep up their morale by whatever means.
People around us, like we all were, of course, very nervous, talking about food all the time, talking about clothes, that we didn't have any, practically no clothes. We had only that striped clothes that we had. And the food was just a piece of bread, what they give you. It was really bad. So Mr. Frank and I, we knew each other from Westerbork. And he said, well, we should get away from those people, because if you start talking about all the time about food and everything, your brain is gonna go. And we said, we understand that physically we maybe will not survive this. So we should try to survive mentally, and try to talk about things that nothing to do with the camp. Like, let's say, do you remember the melody from the Ninth Symphony from Beethoven? And then we start singing to each other, just to get away from this sphere, just to get our brain thinking about other things. We talked about Van Gogh, Rembrandt. Did you ever go to the Van Gogh Museum? Did you ever go to the Rijksmuseum? And all those things, just not to get out of our mind, to get out of this here. And it really helped, I think. He was older, much older than I was. And he said, you know, why don't you call me Papa Frank? Because I have to have something in my life that I can be a papa too. I don't know what he was talking about in the beginning. I said, what do you mean? I have a father, and he is hidden in the Netherlands, in Holland. And if you do it for me, you don't have to do it for me, because I have already a father, and he's still alive. I know he's hidden. No, he said, you do it for me. Because I'm a type of a man, I need this. I need somebody to be a papa for. So I told him, I said, if it will help you, I'll do that. He said, call me Papa Frank. Until he died, not too long ago, when he wrote his letter, he always signed his letters, Papa Frank. I was standing one time in the snow, naked, after we came back from our work. We stand appel here, we say appel outside here, and a German soldier came, and he had his fur coat on, and he looked at me, he said, cold, huh? This is cold. I didn't even answer, I just looked at him. And he said, you know you will not survive this, you know that. But in case you will survive, he said, but I'll take care of it that it's not going to happen. Nobody will believe you. But we did to you people. Nobody.